Episode 28 begins late at night at the Avalon residence. Here, downstairs in the kitchen, you see Aiden, who's Sakura and Tori's father, teaching Sakura how to make dumplings. Well, you know the saying, the first time's for everything, especially in Sakura's case. But just when Sakura was about to put the dumpling in, she accidentally fell off the stool. So when her father saw what had happened, he asked her, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Sakura says. "I guess you forgot to test the temperature, huh?" That's what Aiden said. Well, anyway, the good news is that the dumplings are done. Now Sakura is very disappointed that her first try to make the dumplings are a disaster. He says, "I don't think I'll ever get the hang of this." So even though Aiden tries to support Sakura the best way he knew how, he says, "Oh, cheer up. I'm sure you'll try again another time." So after Sakura agrees with her father that they'll try again the next time, then they heard the voice of Tori coming in, just letting both his father and his sister know that he is home. "We're in the kitchen," Aiden said. So the first thing that Tori did was to ask his sister a question. "Is this another cooking experience for you?" "Well, to be honest, these dumplings are for you," Sakura said. "Well, that's a relief. I just wanted to make sure that they're safe," Tori said. Then Sakura made her case to ask her brother a question. "Why don't you make them sometime?" So the next morning at school, exactly 10 after 8, and in the classroom, Sakura was asked by her best friend Madison if she's out chasing cards again. And then she pleaded her case to say she tried to reach Sakura, but all she got was an answering machine. So Madison wants to know from her best friend if she missed any great shots. "I don't think so," Sakura said. Then suddenly Nikki shows up to say hello to Sakura and Madison. Now Sakura and Madison could tell that there was something that's bothering Nikki. She's getting depressed and worried. So Sakura was asking Nikki, "You're not worried about the gym test, are you?" So Nikki pleads her case to say it's very depressing for her to take gyms. But she thought, well, what the heck? Then she says, "Since it's a box rules anyway, then maybe I can pull it off." "That's the spirit. I know you can do it," Sakura said. Even Madison agrees with her. So Nikki nodded in agreement. So that means she got all the support that she needs, thanks to Sakura and Madison. So later that afternoon during gym class, so everybody's there. Chelsea, Nikki, Rita, Sakura, Madison, and of course Maylin. Let's not forget about her. So anyway, after Sakura took her turn and then the other student didn't do so well. So now it's Maylin's turn. So when Maylin went ahead and took her turn, you could say that she did remarkably well. Not bad. So then the teacher said that it's now Nikki's turn. Well, it seems that Nikki is not the only person who got the support from Madison and Sakura. Chelsea and Rita were giving her the support that she needs too. So when they told her, "You can do it, Nikki," so Nikki went ahead and gave it her all. And of course, she did really well in gym class that day. And of course, the teacher was very impressed with her, and so were her friends. So now that gym class is over, everybody went back to the classroom. And then Nikki just let slip to her friends on how she did it. She said that one of the magical cards that she has gotten recently from the Twin Bell shop, she says that it's the one that helped her out during gym class that day. Now Madison, who couldn't help to be curious, is asking Sakura what she thought of it. Then Sakura looks at that jump card that Nikki had and suspected that this must be the same jump card, but only similar to what she has caught recently since episode 5. Also looking at the jump card besides Madison and Sakura were Chelsea and Rita. So Madison was asking Nikki, "This magic card helped you with that?" And Nikki says yes. But Nikki's not the only person who bought the magical card. Chelsea did too, as Sakura found out about it. So both Madison and Sakura were in shock. complimented to say, "That's very nice." But as Sakura said to her best friend Madison, that can't possibly be the real jump card because flashback, we go back to 23 episodes ago at how she manages to catch the jump card while in Penguin Park, as we recall back in episode 5. Now remember, it was at the time that Maggie is now running the Twin Bell shop, which she still does to this day, so that's the good news. Anyway, when long story short, Sakura was chasing the jump card everywhere, and when Sakura tries to catch it by its feet, that's when she was flying up in the air. But then when she lets go, well, she was falling for a while until, thanks to the fly card, she manages to save herself just in time. Well, good news, thanks to the fly card, Sakura landed on the ground and intact at Penguin Park. So when she tried to catch the jump card by using the wood card, but what she doesn't realize is that the jump card's form just jumped out of the wood cage. So that didn't work. So after a lot of stuffed animals that was surrounded the jump card's form, it collapsed. And that gave Sakura a chance to catch it, in which she did. Then back to the present in the classroom. So Madison, being as curious as she can be, wants to know from Nikki, where did you get these cards? At the Twin Bell shop, Nikki says, and word has it that since Maggie's been running it since episode 5, she's been selling a ton of them for weeks. So Sakura looked at Chelsea and asked if she can see them. So Chelsea said sure. So she was more than happy to show Sakura the same cards that Nikki had. And Sakura couldn't believe it. Even Maylin, that was behind Madison and Sakura, looked at the cards that Chelsea had, and she finds this very, very interesting. So later that afternoon, after school had ended, Sakura and Madison had both agreed to stop by at the Twin Bell shop to see Maggie. So when Madison and Sakura were looking inside the window from outside, I guess they weren't kidding. And according to Sakura, she says, "Wow, word gets around fast, doesn't it?" So when Madison suggested to have herself and Sakura look at those magical cards that Nikki's talking about, that's when Sakura says, "Well, the only cards I'm interested were cloud cards." Then moments later, Sakura just saw Maylin walking out, and so was Madison. So anyway, they were going inside to check out these magical cards that Nikki's been speaking of. So Madison wanted to know from Maylin if she's going to buy a magical card too, but she claims her case, Maylin that is, that she's just looking around. So then it's Maggie's turn to plead her case to say, "I had no idea that those cards are so popular." Well, why not, Sakura says. Everyone's been speaking about it. So Sakura wanted to know from Maggie, where did those cars come from? Well, you see, that's the weird thing, Maggie says. They had just arrived all of a sudden, she said. No wonder they've become so popular lately. And of course, she's not kidding. Then Maggie also let slip that just the previous week she almost returned the cars the moment they arrived. And then one of the customers was calling her name, so she says, "Excuse me, girls, I gotta get back." And so she heads off. So Sakura in her mind just says to herself, something strange is going on. So later in Sakura's upstairs room at the Avalon residence, that's when Sakura told Kiro about what had happened earlier at the Twin Bill shop that she stopped by at. So Kiro, after hearing this news from Sakura, he says, "Well, let me get this straight. You actually believe that those cards are magical?" "Well, Chelsea and Nikki seems to think so," Sakura said, "and they're the hottest thing yet, according to Maggie." Then Sakura started pleading her case to say, "If those cards are really magical, I can sure use one to help me cook those dumplings." So then she suddenly heard a knock on the door. When Sakura went ahead and opened the door, it's her and Tori's father, Aiden, who told her the good news that there's a plate of pudding for her. And so he was more than glad to give it to her, in which she agrees. Now, Aiden at first has heard something weird, but then on the other hand, he decides to think nothing of it. So he says, "Well, enjoy your pudding, Sakura," and so he after that left the room. That was too close of a call, especially for Kiro, because it's not just her brothers almost catching on to him, but Sakura's father too. So the very next day, back at the Twin Bells shop, Sakura and Madison were looking at the assassin cars that both Nikki and Chelsea had. Now remember, those are the exact same cars that Nikki spoke about. So while Madison was busy talking to her best friend, that's when Sakura sensed that something was off. So she went to the card display and looked around a little. So after Madison was asking what was wrong with Sakura, and that's when Sakura says, "You know what I was thinking? I'm thinking that I'm sensing a you know what." So both Sakura and Madison agreed to look around the store to investigate. And so that's what they did. Finally, after investigating further, that's when Madison and Sakura went back to the card display. And before long, Sakura realizes that one of the cards is missing. So she had no idea what was going on, so she asked Maggie about it. So Sakura was asking Maggie, the owner of the shop, what happened to the card that was there in display moments ago. Now, Maggie was really confused. But then by omission, by confession, Maggie just let slip that the card that was just there moments ago was accidentally bought. So Sakura wanted to know what card was it. And she says, "Well, it's not one of the magical cards as far as I can tell." Then Maggie said, "Oh, by the way, it's the shock card." So after Sakura found out about it, that's when her best friend Madison wanted to know, is that one of the you know whats? So Sakura not only said that yes, it is a you know what, but she wants to know from Maggie who bought it recently. "It was one of your friends," Maggie said, "someone with pigtails." So that means that this can mean a serious problem. So when Maggie says, "Wait, I think it was neither Nikki or Chelsea who just bought it recently." So that means Sakura and Madison had got to hurry, so they left the Twin Bells shop. Later, in Sakura's upstairs room at the Avalon residence, while Kira was playing a video game, that's when he receives a call from Sakura telling him the bad news. That recently at the Twin Bell shop that Sakura, and Madison had just left from, they just found out that one of the cards is missing. And that's the shock card. And it is definitely a you know what. But Sakura says, "Wait, that's not all." She says that one of her friends must have bought it by accident back at the Twin Bell shop because she just learned it from Maggie. So Kiro, after learning the bad news, he realizes what just happened. And that is indeed the shock card that was bought by accident. And of course, one of Sakura's friends must have had it somehow. So Sakura was told by Carol this is bad because, as he says in his case, that the shock card is very, very dangerous, and whoever says the name out loud could mean disastrous consequences. Then Carol also says in his case that unless Sakura Madison can hurry up and stop whoever it was that had the shock card from saying its name, then this can mean a problem. So back with Sakura, she ends her phone call with Kiro. As for Madison, she met up with Sakura. And of course, Madison said that there's a problem. She couldn't find Nikki and or Chelsea anywhere. There's only one thing left to do. Fly up. And that's what Sakura did by using her cloud key into a staff and using a fly card. So now that Sakura and Madison were flying on Sakura's staff, of course, that's when Sakura got some bad news for Madison. She said that whoever has the shock card could risk getting hurt if someone says his name out loud, and this could mean a problem unless they hurry. And now, according to what Sakura said to her best friend Madison, they had to find Chelsea and Nikki, so they started looking everywhere in the air, from Penguin Park until when they had no luck of finding them. So when Kira, who had just left the Avalon residence moments ago, she was asked by Kiro, Sakura that is, "Have you found Chelsea nor Nikki yet?" And then finally at last, that's when Madison and Sakura spotted Nikki, who was hanging inside of her house. Meanwhile, Lee, who was walking around, and he senses the same thing as Sakura did, that someone had just moments ago has by mistake has bought the real deal, a shot card instead of the magic card. So when he found out what was going on, he decides to catch up with Sakura and Madison. So meanwhile, back with them, well, good news, they found Nikki. So when Nikki saw Madison and Sakura, they said, "We need to talk to you. It's important. Do you have your magic cards with you?" And Nikki says yes. So Nikki agrees to let Sakura and Madison see them, in which they did. But Madison and Sakura realizes that Nikki doesn't have a shot card on her. So someone else must have did. So Madison and Sakura must have suspected that Chelsea must have had it. So they decided to go back to look for Chelsea, in which they did. So, back with Madison and Sakura, well, good news, they found Chelsea, who was on her way home. So, after Sakura and Madison had met up with Chelsea, and just like what they did with Nikki, they asked Chelsea if she too has those magic cards with her. Not only did Chelsea say yes, but she allows Sakura and Madison to let them see the magic cards that she has. But there's only one problem. Chelsea doesn't have the shot card either, so that must have meant one thing. Someone else must have had it. So now that Sakura and Madison knew that there's no shot card on neither Nikki nor Chelsea, then Madison, as she says in her case, it could be with anybody. Then Sakura must have had a thought that somehow someone else has the shot card. If it's not Chelsea and Nikki, then who? So Chelsea says, "What's going on?" So, as curious as she can be, Sakura wants to know if there was anybody else that was in the Twin Bill shop lately. At first, Chelsea wasn't sure of it, but then just let slip in front of Madison and Sakura that Mei Lin must have hung around the store lately, and she wasn't sure about what she wanted. Then Chelsea also said that Maylin wasn't even sure she bought the card or not, so she must have suspected that she took one by accident. So after Chelsea let slip that Maylin was at the store earlier, and then Madison had the thought that so were Sakura and herself. So in other words, Chelsea not only said that she saw Maylin leave the Twin Bill shop earlier that day, but so were Madison and Sakura. So we know what this means. That means that Sakura and Madison must have suspected that Maylin must have had the shot card somehow by accident. So Kiro pleaded his case out of Sakura's backpack and says Maylin is also he's causing trouble. Then Sakura has her turn to ask a question. How could have Maylin had not know about it? How could she have known that it was the real deal and not exactly a magical card? So there's only one thing for Sakura and Madison to do, to find Mei Lin. So Madison suggested that they can cover more ground if they split up, so Sakura agrees. So Sakura says, "Okay, we'll meet back at the school later." And so Madison agrees and then she heads off. So Sakura runs to meet up with Lee, and she says, "We got a serious problem. Mei Lin, by accident, must have bought the shot card from the Twin Bills store earlier and without knowing anything about it." So Lee, after hearing this news from Sakura, he asked her, "Are you sure?" She says she isn't sure of yet, but it is definitely a you-know-what, the shot card to be exact. Then Sakura says that even if it was the case, then this could mean a serious disaster. Unless we hurry up and find her, there's no telling what could happen. So Lee, after he heard that from Sakura, he says, "You're right, this is bad news." Then Sakura says, "We gotta find her and hurry." And by how? By using the fly card, of course. So both Lee and Sakura went flying into the air on Sakura's staff, of course. So Sakura said to Lee that she and Madison had been looking everywhere, but no such luck. And then asked Lee, "Do you have any suggestions or ideas?" Well, luckily for Lee, he brought his lazing board along. So good news, thanks to Lee's Lazing Board, they managed to find where Maylin and that shot card was. So with no time to lose, they decided to hurry up and find her. So anyway, back with Maylin, speaking of which, who has the shot card, but she has no idea that it's the real deal and not exactly a magical one. So back with Lee and Sakura, now that they found out where Maylin that shock card is, they were at the school grounds. So they had to hurry up and to stop Maylin from doing the unthinkable. So now that Lee and Sakura had made it to school, and just in time too, they called Maylin's name. So back with Maylin, after she heard the voice of Lee and Sakura calling her, that's when they approached her. So after Maylin said hello to Lee, and then she's asking Sakura a question, what are you doing here? So Sakura tries to warn Maylin the best way she knew how. She says, that magic card you just got? Then Maylin showed Sakura the card and says, oh, you mean this one? And Sakura says, yeah. It's, you know what? The shock card. Maylin was in shock. She says, really? It's a real deal? I knew it, Maylin says, and then she pleads her case to say that she can catch her cards too, and etc. So then it's Lee's turn to plead his case to Maylin to say, please just listen. That shock card is very dangerous, he said. Then he said, this is for your own good, so if I were you, I hand it over. Maylin was in shock. She had no idea what to do. And then she told Lee, you had no right to tell me what to do. Then Maylin pleaded her case as clear as it could be that that card is hers. Then Carol said in his case to Sakura that those two reminded him of both herself and her brother. Well, Sakura says, you're not kidding because she happens to agree with him. Then Lee pleaded his case to say, you gotta be careful with that. But she screams, and I quote, no, that shot card is mine. Uh-oh. You know what this means. When she said that card's name was definitely a disaster. And that's exactly what Carol tried to warn Sakura about. But since Maylin said his name, you know what this means. It is definitely bad news. So that's why the shot card's farm went after Lee, because it became his target. So when Carol shouted, Lee, look out! And that's when Lee did the best that he could to dodge the shock card's attacks. So Sakura knows what to do. She uses the shield card to protect Lee, in which it did. Maylin just sat on the ground and did absolutely nothing, and she's watching in horror. So Lee has a plan. And so he said to himself, now somehow I gotta find a way to stop this. So after Lee runs out of the shield, that's when he was running with Sakura. And then he told Sakura that the shock card's attacks can only be on him. So he said, I got a plan for you to catch it. Then Carol told Sakura, you gotta seal it fast. The shock card's only accurate. I know that, Sakura said. And then before you know it, she was staring at the sun of the sky. So you know what this means? Aha, Sakura has a plan. And what was Sakura's plan? To make the shock card's attack shoot itself. And by how, you may ask? By using the mirror card, of course. So now that Sakura has a handheld mirror in front of her, so it's now up to Lee to distract the shock card's form, in which he did. And when the shock card aimed himself into the mirror, it shot himself. And next thing you know, the shock card's form was stunned to death. Oh, well, not really, just stunned, of course. So it's now up to Sakura to seal it, and which she did. So guess what? The shock card makes it number 27 on her list. Good work, Sakura, Kiro said. I must admit it. Capturing that shock card took a lot of guts in you. Thanks a lot, Sakura said. She says, wait a minute, where did Maylin go? And then she heard her best friend Madison's voice and says, she's right here. And good news, she's fine. So, you know what this means. Sakura's best friend Madison's with Maylin. She'll be alright. So as Lee and Sakura ran up to Maylin to help her up, that's when Sakura wanted to know how long you've been here all of a sudden. Well, Madison says, as much as I had to admit it, I got it all on tape, thanks to my video camera, she says. So you know what this means. All four of them walked home. The four of them being Sakura, Madison, Maylin, and Lee. So later that night at the Avalon residence, Sakura was in the kitchen with her father, and let's not forget Tori's father, Aiden, just like she did the night before. It's her second time to make the dumplings, but only this time she didn't mess up. She did 'em just right. So she can do it. As a matter of fact, her father was in fact proud of her, and let's not forget Tori's father too. And what's even better, Sakura took the dumplings upstairs to her room and showed them to Kiro that she finally did it right. And then she told Sakura, it's weird how everyone can believe that all wishes can come true. As a matter of fact, Kiro says, wishes can come true. But the secret is, Kiro explains, you can succeed once you put your mind to it. And of course, he's not kidding. And so, in Sakura's case, she can succeed. So now that she has 27 cards on the list, and Lee has only 3 so far, but there's still a lot to catch. So that ends episode 28.